Good morning and welcome to the weekend. It's Friday, and tonight, week 9 of the UFL kicks off in St. Louis with none other than the 1-7 San Antonio Brahmas facing the 6-2 St. Louis Battlehawks. And welcome to this week's pick'ems and previews. Let's go ahead and dive right on into tonight's game. Friday, May 23rd, 2025, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Anthony Beck and the St. Louis Battlehawks look to continue winning as they will face the 1-7 Brahmas in St. Louis. This game originally taking place in San Antonio before the scheduling conflict moved it to St. Louis prior to the season starting. Beck does appear to be starting all of his starters this week, with Max Duggan getting the starting quarterback position as normal. Silvers will be the backup, and with St. Louis continuing their fight for first place and secure home field, despite the fact we know regardless that game will be played in St. Louis for the XFL Conference Championship in just 2 weeks. They may not have much trouble where we will see the return of Kellen Mond to the Brahmas starting quarterback under Peyton Pardee. San Antonio, on the other hand, will be playing for pride at this point and to really give their players tape heading into the offseason, where many will look for a shot at the NFL that can start beginning in just after next week's matchups in Week 10. The Battlehawks overall will look to keep their defense going strong, where they currently are number 2 in the league, only allowing 17.8 points per game, where Travis Feeney is the reigning and defending Ortho Defense Player of the Week and hopes to continue that streak against the Brahmas. He currently has 19 solo tackles, 17 assists, and 4 tackles for a loss, resulting in 24 loss of yards, and has 2.5 sacks on the season. Can he get to Kellen tonight and gain more sacks? Time will only tell. Well, if there is any indication on how the Battlehawks defense has played, where they currently sit in second place for the least amount of points allowed this season, you could say their defense is ball hawking when it comes to only allowing 142 points on the season, just shortly behind the Stallions at 136. They currently also have 2 defensive touchdowns, which could be encouraging for their defense to try and get the ball from the struggling San Antonio Brahmas, who are quite opposite to the Battlehawks, where their defense has given up the most points this season, and by a far margin of 212 points on the season. This and the fact that their offense is in dead last for points scored this season, only 117. If you remember, it was just a couple weeks ago where the Brahmas basically didn't even get into the red zone or score a touchdown in a mere 200 minutes of play without a touchdown or that trip to the red zone, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me that happened. But this was a struggling offense with Peyton Pardee coming in as the interim head coach when Wade Phillips took a leave of absence. We have no idea what's going to happen next year with this. But there will need to be a lot of work for the Brahmas to even walk away with a victory against the Battlehawks tonight, which I do not think they can do. I feel they will walk away with a loss tonight, and that's why I am going with the Battlehawks to end up 7-2 after tonight, heading into their division matchup and preview the XFL championship game in Week 10 against the DC Defenders. Battlehawks win this one, and then we move on to the first Saturday game, which is the 3-5 Arlington Renegades versus the 2-6 Memphis Showboats. Saturday, May 24th, 2025, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. This game here is going to be an interesting game, in my opinion. 2 teams that have been knocked out of the playoffs and are playing for glory at this point. You have, on one hand, Luis Perez, who could be coming to an end of his spring football career as the Spring King, And a lot have to wonder if Bob Stoops will be returning to the Renegades next season or not as well. As of right now, Luis Perez is listed as starting quarterback for the Renegades, with Holton as the backup as normal. As for the rest of the roster, Arlington Renegades move forward with everyone playing for a massive shot at the NFL. When you take a step back and look at the Renegades, they have lost nearly all 5 games in the last minute of the game and haven't lost any games more than 6-point differential, which, let me be clear, is absolutely crazy when you really think about that. The Arlington Renegades easily could be heading into week 9 in first place and undefeated if it was just for some minor tweaks and not giving up touchdowns, or even if you want to join in the conspiracy theory that if it wasn't for the Mike Pereira or Dean Blandino overcalling certain things, again, they could be undefeated at this point, heading into basically a run where they would have home field advantage going into the XFL Conference Championship game. Unfortunately, at this point, the Renegades are 3-5. They are looking to at least get the best record possible coming out of a season that they've done at all, like a regular season that they've done. At best, 5-5 is currently their goal, in my opinion, and that would walk away with Bob Stoops' best regular season coaching the Renegades, which is hard to believe, but we do remember back in 2023 in the XFL, they got into the conference championship as a 4-6 team. So let's just put that in perspective there. Overall, the Renegades truly should be a team that could be, like I said, undefeated going into week 9. If it wasn't for costly mistakes, penalties, turnovers, or just poor game management late in the game. This was a similar story last year, except they looked like the 4-6 team they were at the end of the season. This year, though, the Renegades, like I said, could end up with a 5-5 record with no problem, which would be their best record they've had in regular season. Players like Day Hunter, Seth Green, Tyler Vaughns, and many others will continue to play hard to get their ultimate shot at an NFL camp after next week ends. This time around, though, the Renegades will be facing an interim head coach fighting for his job to possibly stay on as head coach in 2025 if the Memphis GM decides to go that route, or if the league signs Jim Turner on as a full-time head coach. That still would be, in my opinion, it'd be the decision of the GM if the GM stays. We'll see as time goes on. Memphis will start E.J. Perry tomorrow, and Dresser will be the backup, which is an interesting scenario, as I have thought Dresser has been the better option for Memphis. But this may give E.J. the opportunity as well to get tape to possibly get onto an NFL roster as well. Now, to go back to a video I recorded earlier this week about star running back Jada Byers will not be active this week and may get his shot to show off his talent in week 10. We'll see. But it'll be an interesting game and who walks away with the victory for Pride. Overall, though, I do think Arlington hasn't had much of a problem most of this season when they've forced teams that have been struggling or face teams that have been struggling. And that's why I believe the Arlington Renegades will walk away with a victory in week 9. So moving along to the afternoon game on Sunday, and that, of course, or on Saturday, sorry. And that, of course, is the 6-2 Michigan Panthers facing the 5-3 Birmingham Stallions, Saturday, May 24th, 2025, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. With the preview of the USFL Conference Championship game coming to us tomorrow, I am curious to see what exactly happens in this game and what each team will do, if they will show their cards or hold them close to their chest. As for the Michigan Panthers, they are without Bryce Perkins in what almost is a flashback of last season, where Bryce Perkins was hurt late in the season. And let's be clear, that was in week 9 last year. As of this recording on Friday morning, Bryce Perkins practiced in full participation on Tuesday, but then did not practice Wednesday or yesterday and was ruled out completely with a right ankle injury, which is, again, similar to what he did last year in week 9 where he injured his leg on a quarterback scramble in a very meaninglessly game, which, in my opinion, cost the Panthers the USFL Conference Championship game. This year, though, they have him not listed as being out for the season. This could be a perfect opportunity for him to rest up for the Conference Championship game, where I feel they will massively need him. This week, though, just like last week, except it not being a game time decision, Danny Etling will get the start with Rocky Lombardi being the backup. Another issue for the Panthers could be Gunnar Oakes, who is dealing with a neck injury and is listed as probable, but he did practice full throughout the week. He has been someone who has shined throughout the season with 12 receptions for 145 yards and 1 touchdown. As for the rest of the offense, they look to be healthy, and I fully expect to see Toa Tao to continue to have a breakout season where he has 69 rushing attempts for 218 yards and 5 touchdowns, where right behind him is Nate McCrary with 76 attempts for a gain of 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel if the Panthers can get the run game going and not let up on the Stallions, their defense will have a problem in this game. But as always, we know there are 2 factors that are hurting the Panthers' chances at winning this game. And the first one is that last week, the Stallions lost their game against the Battlehawks by 1 point, and that they have never lost 2 games back-to-back going back to 2022 inaugural USFL Legacy season. Also, another tidbit added onto this Michigan team, they have never beat the Stallions in regular season or in the playoffs in modern-day spring football. This is a huge uphill battle, as it is with Jamar Smith getting the start and Andrew Peasley getting the backup in this game. Obviously, we know the Stallions have struggled with quarterback injuries all throughout the season long, and Alex Magoo could be back for them for the playoffs, but we all know Jamar has been amazing for the Stallions since returning despite the loss last week by only 1 point. Let's keep that in perspective. They will look to continue their win streak against the Panthers. I mean, if I was the Panthers, I would rather lose this game and then win the conference championship to get that opportunity and that be their first win against the Stallions in modern day. Either way, I don't think the game we will see, this is the same game we'll see in 2 weeks, or essentially, I think this could be a close game, but I feel either way, the Panthers and Stallions will have their starting quarterbacks back with Magoo and Perkins at the helm of both teams for the playoffs and be pretty matched up in that conference championship. As for this game here, if Danny Etling can play similar to how he did last week, going 14 for 22, 167 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Houston Roughnecks, then we could see a similar performance tomorrow. And that could come down to the final minutes of the game, like we've seen most of the games come down recently across the league. This game will be another close game, I believe, but in the end, I have got to go with none other than the Michigan Panthers walking away with victory. Now, of course, could lightning strike twice if they win tomorrow and they win in the USFL Conference Championship game? It is a possibility, especially if they get Bryce Perkins back and he is somewhat healthy. I mean, obviously, with a right ankle injury, he is a mobile quarterback. That could be a big issue when it comes down to it. Again, as for in 2 weeks, it's hard to say until we know the final depth chart and really who is starting for each team. The big part here with this is the factor that I think this will be an exciting game to watch and keep an eye on. We know that in their first matchup this season in week 2, Birmingham walked away with the 21-12 victory in Detroit, where Perkins struggled and Edling did not much at all in that game. Again, Panthers walk away with the win. Then we head into the final game of the week, and I apologize if you my dog's barking at our neighbors' idiot dogs. But anyways, we head into the final game of week 9, the DC Defenders versus the Houston Roughnecks, Sunday, May 25th, 2025, 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox. In what could be an interesting matchup on Sunday, as of right now, we don't have a depth chart for this game, which is normal because they don't usually release it until either late tonight or early tomorrow. But the question is, despite DC trying to go for number 1 in the XFL division, which we all know won't matter regardless due to where the game is being played, I mean, the only part that I've brought up does matter is the fact that they would get the opportunity to essentially select who gets the ball first in that game. That's the only big part about that. Outside of that, it does question, does DC even play most of its starters on Sunday? With Jordan Ta'amu continuing to make a case for league MVP, the question is, do they risk him getting injured in a game that really has no meaning at this point? I could see if DC was fighting to get the game at Audi Field and have home field advantage, but in this scenario, we are all in. I just don't see the point. We do know, based on the injury report, that one of Jordan's favorite targets, Braylon Sanders, has not practiced yesterday due to a low back injury and personal reasons. It appears he may not be playing at all on Sunday as they try to get him healed, as he is a prime target for Jordan this year. At this point, it's really hard to see the game plan that Shannon Harris is looking to go with. Could they start Jordan for a few snaps? Possibly, and then bring in the backup. Currently, Jordan has a league high of 1,990 yards, 16 touchdowns, and with a rushing total of a total yards of 2,161 between rushing and passing. He has tossed 2 or more touchdowns in 4 straight games and currently are the second highest scoring team in the league with 196 points through 8 weeks. As for Houston, one has to assume Jalen McClendon will start for them to get even more reps and good possible shot at an NFL roster after next week. He has kind of turned this team around since becoming their starter and will also be playing for their head coach, CJ Johnson, which a lot have criticized all season long, and that he needs to go and someone else needs to come in. I feel that CJ at this point, where just like the Renegades, they could easily go 5-5 to end the season, but it remains to be seen what happens to CJ after the season is up. Houston will play at this point to get as much guys on the field an opportunity to prove their worth for either a shot at the NFL or possibly a spot on the 2026 Roughnecks roster. This game to me is hard to say what could happen, but if DC doesn't sit all of its starters, I feel this will be an uphill battle for Houston to get the job done and beat DC. Overall, despite not knowing the rosters of either team heading into Sunday's matchup, I do think DC will walk away with the victory, heading into Week 10 to face the Battlehawks in DC to cap off the season, which again will be an interesting game for each of those two teams and what they do. It is very interesting. It is a very interesting season where in Week 9 and 10, we are seeing the conference matchups for the championship fold before our eyes, and anything could happen. Either way, I am taking the Defenders to beat the Roughnecks in a game that I believe DC will dominate. Well, fans, I hope you have a great weekend. I will not be doing post-game recaps this week, but will for the final week next week, conference championships, and the actual UFL championship game in June. currently sitting at 20-12. How will my record look after this week? Hopefully 24-12. But we'll see. Let me know in the comments your picks for this week, and I hope you enjoyed my previews. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button right here and check out the other video that'll pop up on the screen here, and we'll see you back here on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone, and have a very safe Memorial Day weekend. We should be back on Tuesday, but there is a possibility that ratings may be delayed until Wednesday with the Monday holiday. I'll keep you informed, and we'll go from there once those are all up. Have a great one, everyone, and thank you again for joining me today. See ya on the flip side.